13 Hours is directed by Michael Bay and it stars John Krasinski along with several other muscle-bound men that play the true-life secret soldiers of Benghazi. 13 Hours is finally the first great film of 2016, and that's due in part because of the suspense that it builds, the great action that it has, the great directing, and the great performances that are given. Let's start there. The performances in the film are all fantastic. John Krasinski gives the best performance he's ever had. He completely devoted himself to the role, and you could tell that he really wanted to pay respect to the true life man that he's portraying, and it really comes across. Along with all the other men that played the soldiers in the film, they all were great. The acting was top notch all the way through the film, and you really respect that because these are true life people. They're real, actual heroes. Like true life heroes, and you respect them so much, and you are so happy that they're portrayed in a good way because they deserve that respect. The directing in the film is top notch. Michael Bay, this is maybe one of his best directed films. Now, Michael Bay is not always the greatest director. In some films like Transformers and other things, you could tell that he doesn't really care as much about what he's doing, but in this film you could tell that he loves the military and he wants to pay as much respect to it as he possibly can. And that really comes across. Now, the directing is not perfect, I would say, because Michael Bay's tropes and style is still all there, and it doesn't exactly take away from the film. It's just that at some parts it comes off like you could tell that it's a Michael Bay film. So it's just there's over colorization, and his shot selection is somewhat just distracting at some parts compared to other military films where the style doesn't overtake the substance. But that's not a problem with the movie. It's just a distraction at some parts because Michael Bay definitely has his very distinct style, and it's still here in the film, but it doesn't really take away from it. Just a little bit distracting in some parts. The story of the film is basically these 6 men that are in Benghazi, and they're ex-military, so they're not technically there. And the U.S. Embassy gets taken over, unbelievably, by the way. That's like an unbelievable true thing that happened. And they're the only ones there that can protect the U.S. Embassy and the people there, and then their own base. So there's no one else there to protect them. And they're in this horrible country where they don't know the good guys from the bad guys. And so it's so scary, and the suspense builds so much in this movie, and it's so good. It's so well directed in that way because you could feel the suspense, and you're so scared along with these guys that they're going along throughout the night, and you don't know who's good and they don't know who's bad. But here's the thing, though, is that that's a good thing and a bad thing because it's suspense building, but at the same time, it's almost confusing because they don't know who's the good guys or bad guys, so you don't know who the good guys and bad guys are. And so sometimes you're kind of like, wait, so what's going on here? What's happening? And there's just some parts where the editing, where that kind of happened, where you were like, okay, is this the good guys? Are we following? Wait, where are we now? And it would kind of just go back and forth sometimes. But that was only a very minor issue with the movie because for the most part, the editing was great. And the action was all great as well. Except for one battle scene, which I felt kind of got somewhat repetitive as it went along. But that was really it. There's not too many issues with the film. Some of the humor comes across as forced. It feels like some of it didn't need to be there. Some of it definitely adds to the film because these are real guys. They're going to joke around with each other. They know each other. They have this special bond. They're going to joke around, but at some scenes I felt like it took away from the scene. But sometimes it really worked well. It's a long movie. So it definitely feels long at some parts, but for the majority of it, the battle scenes and the suspense get you through it real fast, and you don't feel like you're there for very long. Except for a couple scenes where the action scene is kind of drawn out, and like I said, it becomes a little bit repetitive at one part, but for the most part, the movie flies right by because you're so into the characters and to the action, and you're so into it that you don't feel the running time, which is rather long, but you know, you're telling a true life story. It's like you want to do it right. And the best part of the film is that it ends really well. So even if there's a few scenes that drag down a little bit, or you know, that don't aren't as impactful as you want them to be, the film ends well, and it starts out well. It starts out amazing. It has an amazing ending, an amazing beginning. I was really looking forward to this movie, and it did not let me down. Michael Bay delivered. John Krasinski was great. The acting was all great. The directing was great. It was a good-looking film. I really, really am happy that this was a good movie because I was really looking forward to it, and I was just really hoping that because it came out in January that it wouldn't be bad. And it definitely was, and it's the first great film of 2016. I'm going to go 3.5 out of 5 for The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. 13 hours. Good job. Thank you so much for giving me a good movie, finally, in January. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this and you want to see more reviews from a guy like me, you can subscribe, and I'll see you at the next one.